and welcome to Snow Country Stories Japan. My name is Peter Carnell, a freelance writer and guide based in Nagano. It's now the middle of May, and with that, we're just out of the Golden Week period here in Japan. For anyone who's not familiar, Golden Week is a series of public holidays that fall in the final week of April or first week of May each year. The dates vary from year to year, at which time many, if not most, Japanese have an extended break from work and travel to their hometowns to be with their families or just enjoy a well-earned holiday. It results in a huge number of people moving around the country at that time, with hotels and transport booked out well in advance, and trains including the Shinkansen or bullet train becoming like regular Tokyo commuters with passengers squeezed in and often standing for the duration of their journey. Thankfully, up here in the snow country, it's possible to get away from the crowds and find a quiet place for a beer and barbecue with family and friends, and that's exactly what I did. Indeed, for most people, Golden Week is all about spending time with family, taking a break from work, eating and drinking their fill. So with that, the timing seems ideal to talk beer and brewing with one of the snow country's best known breweries, Shiga Kogen. Established in 2004 by the founder and master brewer Sato Eigo, who from this point on I'll refer to as Sato-san, Shiga Kogen Brewery grew out of his family's much older Tamamura Honten, a sake brewery dating back more than 200 years, with a founding vision to produce beers with character and that reflected the local area. From that, Sato-san and the other members of the brewery have grown Shiga Kogen into one of the region's most recognizable, popular and awarded breweries. I was fortunate enough to arrange a chat with Todoroki Mai, a member of the Shiga Kogen Brewery team. Mai is great fun to spend time with, and I'd like to say a big thank you to her and Sato-san for agreeing to the interview. Mai and I discussed quite a lot, including the history and founding vision of the brewery, along with the types of beers they are producing, including their very enticing barrel-aged beers called Yamabushi. The overall brewery takes its name from the nearby ski resort of Shiga Kogen, so we can't talk the beer without talking the ski resort. Shiga Kogen is Japan's largest and highest ski resort. One of the host venues of the 1998 Winter Olympics, Shiga Kogen is comprised of 18 ski areas, most of which are connected, and total Japan's largest extent of interconnected terrain. The resort totals around 600 hectares of ski runs, of which around 425 hectares are connected. There are multiple peaks within the resort, with the highest of those being Yokoteyama, which boasts Japan's highest chairlift at 2,307 meters. In addition, the ski areas of Okushiga, Yakebitai and Terakoya all hit 2,000 meters and above, with other areas such as Ichinose and Kumenayu just short of that mark. The expansive layout of the resort, with valleys between the peaks, is somewhat reminiscent of European resorts and justifies booking a multi-day visit to enjoy everything it has to offer. Located around 70 minutes drive to the east of Nagano City, Shiga is further from the coast than the popular resorts such as Madarao, which we discussed in episode 1 of this podcast, Myoko Kogen, Nozawa Onsen and Hakaba Valley. Its more inland location means that while Shiga typically receives a little bit less snowfall than those resorts, however, not to worry, it still receives plenty, its powder is drier as the snowstorms lose their moisture as they move from the sea and overland. Shiga's higher elevation also means it receives snow earlier and later than other resorts in the area. Thanks to that elevation, some of Shiga's higher areas will open in November and remain open well into April and even into May, with the full resort typically open from mid-December until sometime in April. Basically, Shiga Kogen offers skiers and snowboarders Nagano's longest season. During the 98 Winter Olympics, Shiga hosted women's downhill, slalom and giant slalom, and both men's and women's snowboarding events, noting that it was the first Olympics to include snowboarding as a medalled event. Olympic courses remain well marked today, allowing you to push yourself down them. When there, I recommend taking yourself to the Higashi Dateyama gondola to the top and then dropping down the Olympic downhill course. Awesome fun. I also recommend the powder in Terakoya on the backside of Higashi Dateyama and making your way over to Yakebitai-yama and Okushiga, as I think those are the most scenic areas of the resort with some beautiful tree-lined long runs. Shiga Kogen is part of the larger Joshinetsu Kogen National Park, Japan's fourth largest national park, and another of my favourite green season destinations. Straddling Nagano, Niigata and Gunma, the park includes multiple major peaks, such as Mount Asama in the south, one of Japan's most active volcanoes, along with Mount Kusatsu Shirane, another very active volcano located near the centre of the park, the caldera of which is said to cradle one of the world's most acidic lakes. Mount Nekodake, Mount Naiba, and Mount Tanigawa are among other major peaks, and given the underground activity of these volcanoes, the park boasts many famous hot spring towns including Kusatsu Onsen, Shima Onsen, Manza Onsen, the famous hot spring bathing monkeys of Jigokadani, and others. Declared a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve in 1981, Shiga Kogen Highlands is an area within the national park and home to important species of alpine flora and fauna, including the famous monkeys, black bears, Japanese sero, and many species of bird. I plan to dedicate episodes of this podcast to both the ski resort and Joshinetsu Kogen in future, but just for now, to say that the national park is an all-year-round destination and easily accessible via the Shinkansen stations of Karawazawa and Yuzawa that sit on the fringes of the park, and Nagano Station around 70 minutes drive away. As my notes toward the end of the interview, for those visiting Shiga Kogen Ski Resort in winter, you can enjoy their beers at their tap house called Teppa Room, located in Ichinose Village, while they also operate a tap room nearby the Jigokudani Monkey Park called the Farmhouse. The interview was conducted in the brewery, so from time to time you might hear some background noise. During the interview, I refer to the brewery sometimes as Shiga Kogen Beer Brewery. Apologies for that, it should just be referred to as Shiga Kogen Brewery. I hope you enjoy, and I really hope it has you reaching for a beer while you listen. Always curious, if you work at a beer brewery, how much beer do you end up drinking?
That's a funny question. I have no idea, but of course, every weekend I drink. It's about at least 5 pints of beer a day, I would say.
A day?
A day, yeah.
5 pints?
Yes, a lot of beer actually. I drink with my coworkers as well. They drink a lot. So before working here, I don't think I drank that much. But, through hanging out with my coworkers, I get to drink a lot.
Because I always kind of fantasize that I think for me, working in a brewery would be fantastic, but then I think the reality would be very dangerous.
Dangerous, yes.
Because that was something that always impressed me about you, Mai, before you started working here. Because I like beer, but I think you actually know about beer. That's the big difference, right?
Right.
Yeah. So my guest today on the podcast is Todoroki Mai. Mai works for a beer brewery here in Nagano called Shiga Kogen Beer Brewery, very prominent beer brewery, and very happy that she's agreed to the interview today. So Mai, first question, how are you doing today?
Yes, I'm very good. Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to start off the interview by actually saying to you, I've always really liked your name, Todoroki Mai. It's a pretty cool name. Is that a common family name? I've not heard it before.
It's common around the area I was born in. It's called Mamejima in Nagano City. So before get into, I would say, high school, I was surrounded by lots of Todoroki. So I never thought it's a rare name. I thought it's common name. But after I got into high school, lots of people were like, "Oh, your name is so cool." So I'm like, "Oh, it's very common." And then they were surprised. So, yeah.
I don't know. I think it just sounds good. It's very satisfying to say it.
Todoroki.
So important to mention today that we're speaking at Shiga Kogen's Beer Brewery. Shiga Kogen Beer Brewery is located in an area called Yamabushi, which is around 50 minutes, 1 hour's drive from Nagano City.
Yes.
Is that correct? And we're about only a couple of minutes walk from the very famous onsen town, hot spring town of Shibu Onsen, and maybe 5 minutes drive from the very famous Snow Monkey Park, and 20 to 25 minutes drive from Japan's largest ski resort, Shiga Kogen, from which the brewery takes its name. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mai, are you originally from this area?
So I'm not from this area. I'm originally from Nagano City, and I still commute from my home in Nagano City to Yamabushi.
Okay, no worries. And also worth mentioning that Shiga Kogen, the ski resort that's above us, not only is it the largest and highest ski resort in Japan, it's part of the wider Joshinetsu Kogen National Park. The resort hosted events in the 98 Winter Olympics. Therefore, it can be said to really offer world-class skiing and snowboarding. And from late spring to autumn, you can enjoy fantastic hiking and nature photography while you're up there. So as mentioned, the brewery takes its name from the ski resort. And in fact, I read an interview with the brewery's founder, Sato-san, that Shiga Kogen's greater business engine is its ski slopes. And that's the reason that he named the beer and the brewery after it.
Yeah.
So do you know what he meant by that?
Yes. So, as Peter already mentioned, this Yamabushi area is fortunate to have lots of famous hot springs such as Shibu Onsen, and also, Snow Monkey Park is actually called Jigokudani Onsen. However, this area is definitely famous and having lots of tourists because of the Shiga Kogen ski resort. The name Shiga Kogen is already famous and familiar to many people in Japan because of the ski boom back in 80s and 90s, or even in the world because of the 98 Winter Olympics.
Are you a skier or snowboarder yourself?
I do snowboard, but not so good at it.
When you do, though, do you normally go up to Shiga or somewhere else?
I used to go to Hakuba, but now I go to Shiga.
Go to Shiga. And for the winter just gone, did you have the chance to go boarding much? Because what I find that living here in Nagano with a job which is linked to tourism, it means that it actually then limits your time to go out and enjoy the ski resorts. Do you find the same working for the brewery, that it's hard to find the time?
Yes, exactly. So I couldn't go to snowboard last year.
Well, at all?
At all. This is my first time.
Oh, really? Actually, last season was a bad one for me as well because I did so much snowboarding during COVID. Because those 2 seasons where there was very little tourism, so I just went all the time. I think last winter with tourism back, I only went like 3 or 4 times.
Oh. But 3 or 4 times, it's still good.
It's better than 0.
Yeah, better than 0.
So, Mai, talk to me about the history of the brewery. When did it start producing beer? And was there a founding kind of vision for what type of beer Shiga Kogen wanted to produce?
Tamamura Honten is the company name. And then Tamamura Honten was founded in 1805 and making sake for over 200 years now. And brewing beer from 2004 and also growing hops from 2006. So we also make sake, beer, and hops now. And since then, we have been brewing lots of beers and then recognized by people, not only in Japan, but in the world. We won the Brewery of the Year twice in 2010-2014, so which is an award given to the most successful craft beer company of the year in Japan. And also, we were awarded as the Japan's top brewer from 2015 to 2018, so 4 consecutive years, on the website called Rate Beer, so which is the most comprehensive rating and a reviewing site of beer from around the world. And we have cooperated with breweries from all over the world as well, from the US, from Canada, and from Taiwan as well. So the vision of our brewery from the beginning is to make beers that we personally want to drink, and specifically the perfect beer during a meal. And when Sato, our founder, first thought about what style he should make, he was looking for beer which has character, and he decided to make ale style, so not the lager style.
Which are more common in Japan, right? Lagers more like ales.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, like Asahi, Sapporo, which are all lagers. So he wanted to make something different. So we have been brewing pale ale or IPA and porter from the beginning. And then that's our kind of called hoppy style. So, kind of bitter. And that would be a good match with meal. So that's what we want to make.
So this might be a difficult question to answer because I know you produce a whole range of beers. But in your own words, Mai, how would you describe Shiga Kogen's beer in terms of its taste compared to other Japanese beers?
So we're actually famous for our IPAs. And what people say about our beer is bitter or hoppy. And I also think it's kind of true because, our vision is to make beer that personally we want to drink and then perfect beer during a meal. And then you wouldn't want to drink sweet or, kind of complicated drink during a meal. And you would maybe want to something dry or maybe bitter so that you can eat a lot and then drink a lot together. So that's what I think about my taste.
And just to jump back to what you mentioned a little bit earlier about the awards that Shiga Kogen has won, can you just mention those awards again? Exactly which awards it received?
Yes. So the first one is called Brewery of the Year in Japan. So that's like an awards always holds in Yokohama every year, maybe during December, I think. Yeah. And
if I'm not mistaken, Yokohama is kind of where beer originated in Japan. Is that right?
Maybe.
I think Kirin is based in Yokohama. Is that right?
Honto. Kirin, yes.
Yeah, I think
yes.
Kirin at least were the first big beer producer. Maybe there's some connection there.
Yeah, maybe there's
Which
some
would make sense
connection.
because Yokohama is a port city.
Yes,
So presumably these ships were coming in from overseas.
Yes.
Beer that way, perhaps. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah. Thank you for explaining. Okay. And the second one is called Rate Beer. So that's a website. And then they do an award every year called like top brewer of all those awards. And then we were the top brewer of Japan from 2015 to 2018.
That's remarkable.
Yes. Yeah.
Any idea how many breweries there are in Japan?
So back then, or it's getting bigger and bigger, but right now there are 700 breweries now, like a craft beer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now. So we have a lot.
Yeah, it strikes me as a very competitive industry and you've always got to keep changing to stay relevant. Just curious, like in terms of, so the brewery's been operating around just over 20 years now. Yeah. So how many litres of beer does the brewery produce each year and does it still consider itself a microbrewery or craft beer brewery?
Yes. So we produce about 380 kiloliters every year. So 380 to 400 maybe. And then, yes, we are still small. Actually, because, for example, there are some craft breweries producing more than 1,000 kiloliters a year and it's still called craft beer. And then for much bigger companies producing maybe 10,000 kiloliters and more. So yeah, we are still small.
And producing beer primarily for the Japanese market or it's also for export overseas?
So we export to only limited places like for now, Thailand, Hong Kong, Singapore, and then Taiwan. And I think it would be nice if people can enjoy our beer outside of Japan. But we also want to make sure where our beers are sold and if it is kept under the right condition, as our beers have to be refrigerated. And the big reason for this kind of strict rule for exports is we want people to enjoy our beer at the best condition. So that's what we always want to make sure. But yeah, that's why I make sure we make contacts in constant interaction with international partners in Thailand, Hong Kong.
So all of those countries you named, they're all in the Asian region, so relatively close to Japan. Is there something limiting Shiga Kogen's ability to get their beer exported to Australia, Europe, United States? Is that something which might happen?
So actually, we've tried to export to US before, but US has very strict rule. So for example, there is a domination rule in the US. So if we export through one company, we can only export through that company anymore at all. But like these countries I mentioned, there is no rule for that.
So talk to me, Mai, about the range of beers on offer. One thing which Shiga Kogen has always really impressed me is that you guys produce a lot of different types of beers. So what's the range for 2023? What's coming?
For now, the Shiga Kogen beer, we have 9 kinds of beer which we sell all year round. And we do make several seasonal beers, basically 2 or 4 kinds a month. So it's a lot. Sorry, I didn't calculate it, but it's a lot.
No, I was just actually trying to calculate it myself. I was like, that's the only way you can say it. It's a lot.
It's a lot, yes. Yes.
Coming from Australia, actually, I noticed Japanese breweries, they typically produce a lot of seasonal beers or special series of beers. Do you know what's the motivation behind that? Like, why so many?
Yeah, I noticed the same thing as well. And then there are actually some breweries who doesn't have the regular beers, like all year round beers, and then only produce seasonals. And then I think it's kind of like get the beer geeks' attention, I would say, especially in Japan. So every time the seasonal beer comes out, the beer geeks would rush into the shops and then get the beer. That's maybe the style. So some breweries are kind of, that's maybe can be a good hit if we only produce seasonals.
Yeah, it's a great thing. But the frustration is that sometimes these seasonal beers, I find one that I love, and then within a month or two, it's gone.
Yes, that's true.
And the thing is, and you think, okay, well, maybe they'll do it again next year. And then often they just never do it again. Yeah.
Yeah, that's sad. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, very interestingly, among your beers, you have what's called the Yamabushi series. I'm very interested to talk about these. So can you explain about the Yamabushi and what makes those beers different?
Okay. Yeah. So Yamabushi is a project that got inspired by Belgian beer and then tries to strive for a unique beer that has originality of Japan. So that's the project of Yamabushi. And while Shiga Kogen beer is an American style, kind of, or the German style, and using lots of hops, and you can enjoy the hoppy taste. Yamabushi is a Belgian style, which is drier and more like a wine-like taste, I would say. And the Belgian style I mentioned includes the farmhouse ale, and usually saison are recognized as classic farmhouse styles, and which are believed to have originated on farms in Belgium and northern France over a century. And also the Belgian style includes Trappist beer, and which is brewed by Trappist monks and nuns. And then the name Yamabushi is kind of related to this. Yeah.
Yeah, now this term Yamabushi has come up in some previous interviews. So Yamabushi, for any listeners who aren't familiar with it, Yamabushi refers to, effectively in English, what you would say is mountain ascetics, followers of the different Shugendo faith systems in Japan. Shugendo is a mix of Japan's native religion of Shintoism, Buddhism, folklore, myth, all types of things. And it blends to have a very strong focus on nature worship. And there is an emphasis over ritual and experience over scripture, for example. So what you often see with Yamabushi, they take themselves into the mountain as a form of kind of spiritual cleansing or spiritual testing. And they're quite mysterious and they're considered a little bit wild, right? Yes. And is that one of the reasons that you've chosen to call these beers Yamabushi?
Yes, totally. Yeah.
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 My understanding, these are barrel-aged beers, which is something which I'm not particularly familiar with. So can you just explain what is the process there in aging them?
So we sometimes use the wine barrels and that are already used in the wineries. And then that already has the wild yeast within the barrels. So
It's already in the barrel.
in a
I
barrel,
see. Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And also, so basically the beer making process is, we brew in a tank and we put the beer in a bottle. That's the end. But the Yamabushi, we brew in a tank first and we put the beer itself into a barrels. And inside the barrels, the wild yeast gonna try to eat the sugar remaining in the beer. So usually the malt, malt is kind of sweet. So it's kind of like a sweetness.
So one of the reasons that beer retains some sweetness is not all the malt is converted into alcohol. Is that correct? So
That's correct,
yeah.
yes.
So by putting it into the barrels and
Yes.
adding this wild yeast, it's converting more of it to alcohol.
Yes, converting to the alcohol and also it's gonna eat the sugar.
Yeah.
So it gets much drier taste. So it tastes more like a wine, I would say.
Right.
Or sometimes sour.
Yep.
So Yamabushi tends to be sour as well, especially barrel-aged sour.
So drier and I guess more alcoholic.
Yes.
So kind of what is the typical kind of alcohol percentage of these?
It's about 7 to 9,
Okay.
usually below 10%, but some Yamabushi are more than 10%.
And how long are they aged in the barrels for?
So it depends. For barrel-aged beers, it's quite long. So maybe more than a year at least. Yeah. Some of them are 2 years, 3 years. And then even though they are aged in the barrels for quite a long year, they are going to be put into the barrels. The special thing about Yamabushi is, so after the tank aging and the barrel aging, they're going to do the bottle aging as well. Because we are now going to filter all the yeast. So the yeast is still remaining in the bottle. I mean, we put the yeast.
It's added once it's in the bottle.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So
What is the reason for that? So after I would have thought, as the brewer, you want to know the taste when you have bottled it and you're selling it. But by putting the yeast in there, the taste is going to continue to change.
yes. So the thing is, so for the aging and the fermentation, it has to be under the kind of warm temperature. And so after we put back into the bottles, we are going to put in the kind of warm room for the fermentation and for the not aging, but I would say for the fermentation. So it's called secondary or third fermentation already. So we are going to taste it at some point. And then once we thought, it's good, we are going to put in the refrigerator so that the fermentation is not going to continue.
Yeah.
So we're going to stop at the moment and then we are going to release the beer right after we thought it's good timing to produce. But still, the yeast is remaining in the bottle. So if you don't keep the Yamabushi in the fridge, I would say it's gonna continue to age and then ferment.
The barrels you're using, they're only wine barrels, or you're also using bourbon, anything else like that?
Yes, we use wine barrels, of course, but also we use whiskey barrels, and the whiskey barrels we get from the Ichiro's malt whiskey, so that is from Chichibu, and we also get cognac barrels. We get it from France, and also for the wine barrels, I have to mention we get it from the Obuse winery,
which is very nearby.
Yeah,
Obuse is
nearby.
around 30 minutes drive from here, right?
Yeah. So we get some local connection so that we were fortunate to have the winery barrels from Obso Winery. Yeah.
And my understanding is one of the other reasons that these beers take on the flavors that they do is that the barrel breathes as it expands in the heat. And as it does that, the beer goes into the wood. And then as the barrel cools later in the day and the alcohol is pushed back out, it extracts some of the flavor of the bourbon or wine from the barrel itself. Is that correct? So it's actually taking on the flavor.
Yes, I would say kind of, yeah. And also the beer also get the flavor from the barrels too. So some beers, you feel the notes of the, not only the wine or like a grapes, but also their wooden flavor, kind of, I would say. So it's a unique point.
So does that mean each barrel produces its own beer? When you're labeling these beers, how do you go about doing that? Because each barrel could produce very different flavors, right?
Yes, exactly. So basically we kind of blend in. So we don't only make one type of beer in one barrel. We use several barrels and we kind of mix it, the flavor. And then our brewers basically gonna taste the blending and then they're gonna kind of discuss, we should put more from this barrel and we should put more from this barrel, less, blah, blah, blah.
How involved in that process are you? Are you getting involved in the...
Sometimes. Yeah, that's fun part.
Do you need volunteers? I don't live that far away.
It's fun part, yeah.
Are there any other breweries in Japan producing barrel-aged beers?
Yes, there are. A few breweries make these kinds. Yeah, for example, the Far East from Yamanashi, or there are some breweries in Kanagawa, Chigasaki as well, and they do quite well. But we think there is no brewery making this amount like us. So I would say for this barrel-aged beer, we are one of the biggest in Japan.
And also, Mai, you mentioned at the beginning that Shiga Kogen is connected or originates out of the much older Tamamura sake brewery, which has been producing sake for more than 200 years. Does that connection to the sake brewery influence the style of beers that you're making here?
Yes. So, for example, we use sake rice for some beers, such as our regular beer called Miyama Blonde or Baby Blonde Miyama, which is using a sake rice called Miyama Nishiki, and which is our homegrown sake rice. And also sake rice is used for some Yamabushi series as well, because sake rice has gluten, which is a sugar.
Yeah.
So it's good to produce alcohol and the dry taste too. And also we make a beer called Nigori, which is brewed with moromi of sake. So
moromi is the alcoholic mash of sake before. So after the process of fermentation, before the liquid is extracted from the mash, that mash is called moromi. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. So we mix the beer and moromi, and this is a hybrid beer with sake and beer. So I think this is very special, and
these are beers for the beer geeks that you're talking about, right? To get them excited. So Mai, how long have you been working for the brewery?
So since 2020, so it's been 3 years and it's my 4th year. So I was always interested in craft beer culture. And so I was volunteering at a craft beer event in Tokyo, in Shibuya. And I met people from Tamamura. They are from our company because they were also at the event as well. And found out that they were hiring at that time. And yeah, I was always interested in the craft beer, and I also liked Shiga Kogen before. So But I never thought of doing it as a job. But I could not forget how fun it was at the event. And people I met there as well. So I end up like working here somehow.
And what's your role with the company? Can you describe your kind of day-to-day work with the brewery?
Yeah, so I'm doing the office job. So basically, I take care of the orders or the web shop and shipping, etc. And also, the office is next to the shop, next to our brewery. So sometimes I am at the shop and then chat with customers. And our company is kind of small with only about 20 people. So even though our jobs are kind of categorized, like me, office job or brewer or sake brewer, but sometimes we get together and do the things together. For example, when we release the new beer, we're gonna taste all together and then chat about what tastes like. So it's fun parts. Also, we go to events such as beer festivals held in all of Japan, sometimes in the world. So there I can actually meet the fans of craft beer. And I feel this is the best part of the job because it's really fun.
What do your family and your friends think of you kind of following this career in beer?
So as this is what I like to do, my family is happy to see me working with Joy. And also my mom especially likes beer. So she's very happy that she gets to try varieties of beer I buy every time there is a new release.
Did she get to taste some of the beers before they're available?
So I buy the beer right after it's released.
Right.
So she is one of the first one who tries the beer. So she's really happy.
It's a nice little perk. I imagine there's lots of perks for this job, actually. I was surprised when you mentioned earlier as well that there's around now 700 breweries in Japan, which makes me think that it must be extremely competitive, right? So is it a hard industry to succeed in?
I would say so, yes.
And in terms of Shiga Kogen's kind of vision for the future, is there something that it's working towards to kind of keep making itself stand out?
I don't think we don't want to be as big as the big four companies like Kirin, Asahi, Sapporo, and stuff. And we still like to brew the beer we like. But yes, still we would like to be one of the beer breweries who are recognized among them. So don't want to be too big, but still want to produce a lot.
Do you see any big differences between the beer industry here in Japan and overseas?
Yes, I would say big difference would be how casual it is to see craft beer in your life. So, for example, when I was in Canada or the US, you would see craft beers kind of everywhere. So, like you're going to the restaurant and you can order the pint of craft beer easily, like without asking, oh, where is the craft beer menu? Because it's already on. But in Japan, you have to first choose the restaurant or the bar which has a craft beer menu, and that's the same for the shops too. So in Japan you would go to craft beer specialized shop to buy craft beer, but maybe in US or the Canada you can just go to a casual liquor shop. And that's already there, like a bunch of them.
And what about beer tastes in Japan? Do you see those changing or any trends that you see that are coming?
Yes, right now I think that trend is like a hazy style. So kind of smooth when you first taste it, not too bitter. And also there are styles called smoothie ale. It's maybe trend in the world as well, but it's basically fruits smoothie tastes like beer. So even the beer,
I've not heard of this.
so maybe only among the beer geeks, but yeah,
Right.
it's basically a sweet beer.
So it drinks like a beer. When you say smoothie, it's
Smoothie is smoothie.
it's a thick.
Yes,
a
thick. Yes, it kind
Right.
of looks thick. Yeah.
And is Shiga Kogen Brewery producing one of those or any
we
plans?
don't. Yeah,
No.
we don't.
Yeah, I think for international visitors, I mean, to any country, not just Japan, that beer is a real kind of access point to the local community. Because I know when I travel, I one of the first things I want to do anywhere new is try whatever is the local beer to that location. And so I expect that through this podcast, I hope, I will confess a little secret that I have, that one of my ambitions in starting this podcast was to be invited in to breweries and distilleries. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So there is a personal agenda there. But I think in doing that, you discover so much about the local region. Because Japan, like any country, from one end of Japan to the other, is very diverse. But maybe for foreigners, sometimes it's a bit hard to access, what is unique about this area. But one way you can do that is through, experiencing the local drink and the food. And beer is obviously kind of a universal language. You don't need to, unlike sake, that you maybe haven't experienced before, or you're not sure, how to go about choosing a good one, this and that. Everybody kind of understands how to go and get a beer and whether they like it. So I think it's a good example of that, right? That Shiga Kogen is producing beers that really show the character of the local area. Actually, it's my understanding that much of the ingredients you're using in your beers are locally produced. Is that correct?
Yes, of course. Water is from Shiga Kogen. I mean, I would say the malt hops we import, but we try to use the local ingredients as well, for especially when we use fruits or like even we grow hops as well. Also for Yamabushi, sometimes we use fruits, for example, blueberries and raspberries, and we grow them by themselves as well, and we handpick them in the morning during the summer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like a lovely thing. do you need any help? Again, I won't.
Actually, for hops, we need help during the summer. Actually, so picking up hops, because we expand our hop years last year, actually. So we might need a lot of help.
When is that? When you say summer, it's July, August?
It's August till September usually. Yeah. And then before the COVID, we announced that, please come here for the volunteering. Of course, free beer. Yeah. And then you can help with like picking up hops, and after picking, people can enjoy the beer for free. So that was kind of like a
nice
event.
Yeah.
But because of the COVID, we couldn't do that for 4 years now. But maybe I'm not sure, but sometime soon we're gonna do that again.
Okay. Message me.
Yes.
I'm here.
Yes.
And the one question I want to ask you as well, that given you work in the beer industry, Mai, any tips on how to avoid a hangover or how to fix a hangover? Any secret Japanese cures?
Yes. So I'm not sure if it's like the tip, but like in Japan, there is a medicine, I would say, or the drink called ukon no chikara or heparize. So that basically helps you to get over from the hangover or to avoid a hangover. And I take them every time I drink. So
where do you get them?
At the drugs. Do you say drugstore?
Drugstore is fine.
Drugstores, yes.
Are they also in the convenience stores?
Yes, convenience stores as well.
What do they look like?
It's in a small bottle. So ukon no chikara kind of look like orange or yellowish color. And it's in Japanese, but it's a ukon on the label. But usually in the convenience store, when you first go in, you're going to see on your left-hand side in a refrigerator. Yeah, there are a bunch of medicine kind of drink inside.
Now, in asking you that question, I didn't know what your answer would be, but I was hoping you would say that because one of the best bits of advice I was given when I first moved to Japan, because Japan has this very, people work long hours and often, especially in the cities, salarymen and everything else, after work, they might have to go drinking with the boss, right? And they might drink more than they really want to, and then they've got to go home late or come and be back to work before they know it. And so Japan has obviously developed all these little drinks to help you beat the hangover, right? Yeah. Which is, as when you walk into the convenience store, there's always a little open refrigerator of all these little bottles. Yeah. And the one that I was directed to, maybe it's one of the ones you're referring to, I actually don't know the name. It's the little golden can.
Golden can. Oh, yeah.
With the ginger, I think, on the...
Yes, so that's the one I was mentioning. Yeah. Ukon.
That's the one?
Yes.
I can say, yes, they work. They can be defeated. You can still get a hangover, but the advice I was given was have one before you drink and have one immediately after.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, correct.
And I tested it out again on the weekend when I was out for dinner, and that turned into drinks and more. And I did exactly that. The next day, I was totally fine. So it's a great bit of advice. So as I said, walk when any convenience store for anyone who's visiting, you just walk in. It's a little cabinet of refrigerated cabinet at the front, little gold can. Yes. 2 of those, and you're
perfect.
Good as gold. And finally, you mentioned that at this time your beers aren't being exported to Australia or United States or Europe. Maybe in the future, but not at this time. So really, if somebody wants to try them, they're going to be hit when they're here in Japan. If someone is looking to try Shiga Kogen beers, where can they get their hands on them? Where can they try your beers?
Yeah, so at the restaurant, we have our own restaurant called The Farmhouse, which is close to the Snow Monkey Park, and where you can have more than 10 taps of Shiga Kogen beer and tasting set of Yamabushi and our sake as well. And during the winter season, usually from December until the end of the March, I would say, we operate a beer bar called Teppa Room in Shiga Kogen Ski Resort. And of course, there are some shops around all over Japan. You can buy our beers as well.
You won't struggle to get your hands on it. It's stocked at a lot of supermarkets. Some convenience stores will have it as well. So what I'll make sure to do for today's episode is put some images of what the beers look like on the website. So if you are coming this way, you know what to look for and to get it. Why don't we wrap up the interview there? Because I'm conscious of you are working today. And I don't want you to have to pay for this by staying late. I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That's it for today's episode. I'd like to say another big thank you to Mai and Sato-san for agreeing to the interview. Make sure to check out the show notes for links to Shiga Kogen's website and Instagram. I've also included a link to the Shiga Kogen Ski Resort website and other relevant information. This episode is number 6 of the podcast. A very big thank you to everyone who is listening, and especially those who've gotten in touch and taken the time to review the podcast. As always, it's hugely appreciated if you can subscribe to, rate, review, and share the podcast. And make sure to follow Snow Country Stories Japan on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. Reviews, likes, and shares make a big difference, so if you're enjoying, I'd love for you to do that. Just a reminder to also make sure to visit the website www.snowcountrystories.com for more information about the podcast and each episode, my profile, and services as a writer and guide based here in Nagano, Japan. Playing out the show, as always, local taiko group Izuna Gongen Daiko. My name is Peter Carnell. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back in a couple of weeks with the next episode. Until then, it's bye for now.